Coming up on today's show, I linked up with my guy Chase Sr., the host of our Eagles show here at Chat Sports, and we did a preview. Talked about a lot, even ways that Chase thinks the Giants can beat the Eagles. If you want that to happen, hit that thumbs up icon right now.
All right, here we go. Welcome into the show. I'm Chase Sr., host of Philadelphia Eagles Now. That is Marshall Green, host of New York Giants Now. Obviously, two content creators here at Chat Sports. So we're going to preview this Eagles-Giants Thursday Night Football game. This video is going to go up on both channels, so I'm glad that all of you are hanging out here with us. We will both be live for a watch party, so hit that subscribe button for the best coverage for the Eagles and the Giants every single day year-round. I want to start off on the injury front, and I'll relay some of the Eagles injury news, and then I'll toss it to Marshall, and he can pass along some of the Giants injury news. But both teams did just release their injury reports. Grant Calcaterra, backup tight end to Dallas Goedert, has that oblique injury that he suffered in that loss against the Denver Broncos. He is not going to play in this game, so he is out. So too is Landon Dickerson with that ankle injury. He got rolled up on against Denver, and I'd say that up until last week, he had been playing and looking about 70%. I just think he needs some time to get right because he has not played that well this year, and obviously he's one of the highest paid left guards in football. He needs to be better because the interior of this Eagles offensive line has struggled both in pass protection and in the run game, and that's led to a Jekyll and Hyde start for the Eagles offense. As for Jalen Carter, a surprise addition to the Eagles injury report on this Wednesday, October 8th, a day away from kickoff. We know that all year, going all the way back to training camp, he's been dealing with that nagging shoulder injury, but he popped up on the injury report with a heel issue. And so he was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday. He is questionable for this game. And we saw in week one when the Eagles took on the Dallas Cowboys that without him, one of the best defensive players in the game, the Cowboys realized that. They ran right at Philadelphia. They had a lot of success on the ground. And Jalen Carter, one of the more disruptive defensive players in the game. So if he can't play in this game, obviously it changes the playing field a little bit with the Eagles as 7.5-point favorites. That's some bad news on the Eagles injury report. Some good news. Saquon Barkley, knee soreness coming out of that game against the Broncos, full participant. Jahad Campbell, biceps, he was full. Nakobe Dean, knee, full participant. He's questionable. It just comes down to whether or not the Eagles want to activate him. And then Byron Young, triceps, full participant. So we'll continue to talk about the implications with this. Do want to toss it over to Marshall because he has some insight on the Giants injury report. And unfortunately for Giants fans, one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football after that Malik Nabers injury might be worse.
Yeah, the gift of the Giants receivers that it keeps on giving. Obviously, no Malik Nabers, out for the year. They're also going to be without Darius Slayton, who they paid $16 million, well, $12 million per year if you don't want to count all the guarantees. But he's going to be out as well. Suffered a hamstring injury this past Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. Some Giants fans are happy about that, considering he fumbled the football and dropped a big play last week. But you're left with a really young and inexperienced wide receiver room. You have Wan'Dale Robinson now as your wide receiver 1, but your wide receiver 2 is going to be Jalen Hyatt. Your wide receiver 3 is going to be Bo Collins. You have Gunnar Olszewski as well. He's really just a return specialist. So I expect for them to upgrade Lil Jordan Humphrey from the practice squad. Not sure how much that's going to change, but that's really the big news. Giants also have Jermaine Oluminor, their right tackle, who's been pretty good this year. He is questionable with a back injury. So those are the really only two negative stuff on the injury report. Some good news, Tyrone Tracy, who's missed the past couple of weeks, he's actually not on the injury report at all. So the second-year running back will be returning to action for the Giants after missing the last 2 games. And with the Giants and where they stand at their wide receiver position, I think their number one path to travel for victory is to be able to run the football. They've done a decent job of that with Cam Skattebo. Tracy had a really good rookie year. And actually, since Jaxson Dart took over as a starting quarterback, the Giants averaged the 3rd most rushing yards in the NFL per game. Expect to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. You'll see that full house look that they run in the backfield with Daniel Bellinger as well as Cam Skattebo. And I think, Chase, you also might see both running backs on the field at the same time for the Giants. Get to see some Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy. And I could see the Giants, even with both of those running backs, running some open and empty sets in the shotgun and moving them out to the wide receiver positions, try to get the Eagles to play some heavier personnel groupings on defense and force them into coverage as well.
Obviously, the Giants want to run the football, which is why that Jalen Carter injury potentially looms large.
Do you think he plays?
What's that?
He's playing, right?
I think he's playing, but it's a short week. You never know because you always want to take advantage of that mini bye week after that Thursday
totally rest.
game.
He should rest.
For Giants fans, they want him to rest. For Eagles fans, we want him on the field. And this Eagles rushing defense has kind of been up and down all year, kind of like the team. That's been really the story for Philadelphia the first 5 games of the year. They've been leaky at times, and then at times they've been really good. So obviously, if Jalen Carter is on the field, he changed the complexion of that Eagles rushing defense. With that Giants injury news, Marshall, obviously the wide receiver position has taken a really big hit, and we kind of knew going into the year. Malik Nabers goes down, the room is different. When he's on the field, top 5 wide out. I don't think that's a hyperbolic statement to make. And when you couple that with having a young quarterback in Jaxson Dart, that's why you've talked about the Giants needing to go out there and make a trade, even though they might not be a playoff team this year. It's not trending in that direction, just to help out the young quarterback.
Yeah, everyone's like, Marshall, why would you do that? Why would you go out and make a move? The season's over. It's like, well, Jaxson Dart's career is just starting.
Yes.
And I think it's actually a chance to stunt his growth as a quarterback. You don't have a guy that can consistently separate. You don't have a guy that consistently beats man coverage. And Wan'Dale Robinson has had a drop issue. Darius Slayton has had a drop issue. Jalen Hyatt is one of the bigger busts in recent memory. No, he's a third-round pick, but that was a Biletnikoff Award winner. Yeah. And Bo Collins, he was at UDFA just a couple of months ago. And I know he's producer Chip's guy. Shout out to Clemson. But stopped on a route last week, causing Dart to throw an interception. I am extremely worried about the receiver group. I think they're going to try to run the offense kind of 1990s style. 2-3 tight ends on the field. Theo Johnson has kind of emerged as a little bit of a weapon under Jaxson Dart. The Giants really didn't use the tight ends all that much under Russell Wilson. So look for the Giants to maybe isolate a guy like Theo Johnson on maybe a smaller nickel corner. Maybe Cooper DeJean probably doesn't favor the Giants all that much. But you got to cook with the groceries you have, and the Giants, they don't really have great groceries right now.
Yeah, got to get creative with the personnel that you have. And sticking with Dart, I know you and I liked him in the pre-draft coming out of Ole Miss, and you were kind of on that for a while on your channel saying, I think this is the guy for the New York Giants, given where they can get him in the draft. Obviously, they go Abdul Carter with that first pick, then they trade back into the first, and they get Jaxson Dart. And when you and I were at the NFL Combine, he said something really interesting that I wasn't expecting. He said, I kind of emulate my game after Jalen Hurts. Yeah. And I was like, really? Because I think Dart throws a little bit better with more velocity, especially over the middle area of the field. And you saw that against the Saints with a couple of those touchdown passes that he had early in the game as the Giants went up 14-3 and then obviously turned it over. But have you been impressed with what he's been able to do? Your scouting report on Dart, I guess he makes that Hurts comparison because he's a gamer. He plays with some swagger. He's kind of cool, calm, and collected. Maybe a little bit noisier than Hurts, but he's a runner like Hurts in the fact that they don't have blazing speed, but they're kind of physical. They don't shy away from contact.
Yeah, and they're just football players at the end of the day, playing the quarterback position. Jaxson Dart in high school, before he transferred his senior year, he ran a triple option offensive attack at the quarterback spot. So he has that mindset of, I'm trying to fall forward on every single run. And he's got a long way to get to Jalen Hurts' territory. Super Bowl winner. You guys know exactly what he's done. But I do think they are similar when it comes to skill sets and the way that you can run an offense through them. But most importantly, they're leaders. They're culture changers. Hopefully for the Giants that comes true. And they're guys that will do anything to win a football game. You can run a power schemed offense if you want. You can run a drop back offense if you want. And when you get in that red zone, you're playing 11-on-11 football. It's hat on hat. Every player has to be accounted for. And that's kind of taken this Giants red zone offense, which was the worst in the NFL under Russell Wilson, to a little bit more respectable with Dart, because you can work that read option. You can work his legs, and he throws over the middle a little bit better than Russ. Long way to go for Jalen Hurts, but I do think there are a lot of similarities in their game.
I want to get to a big pressing question that I have about this Giants defensive line coming up, because going into the year, they were looked at as a feared unit. I'm not sure they've necessarily played like that so far. So I'm going to tee that up and cue that up. But I do want to get to our sponsor really quickly, our friends at Chubbies, making our Eagles-Giants preview possible. And I know a lot of you Giants fans, Eagles fans, you've really liked the polos that we've worn, myself and Marshall on the show, the Giants ones and the Eagles ones. You can get those if you use our link down below, chubbyshorts.com/chatsports. We're going to show both of them on the screen. Obviously, Giants fans are going to say that the Eagles polo looks bad, and then the Eagles fans are going to say the Giants polo looks bad. But come on now, they're awesome designs, and if you want to rep your team, you can do that and get 20% off your purchase at chubbyshorts.com/chatsports and use that code chatsports. And look, it's fall. Football season is here. Comfy, casual, built for life clothing. That's what you're looking for. The leaves are turning, the temperatures are dropping, the weekend air is getting that nice autumn crisp. Just because the weather is changing doesn't mean you have to pack away the fun. So Chubbies is here to make sure your fall wardrobe is looking on point with soft, stretchy, fall-ready staples built for maximum comfort and minimal effort. Mark your calendars, the Chubbies Fall Collection. It is here and it is awesome. And so whether you're layering up for tailgates, lounging through lazy Sundays, or just leaning fully into fall comfort, Chubbies has you covered. And there's a new deal. 20% off your order when you use the code ChatSports at chubbyshorts.com/chatsports. The other deal that we used to tell you about was $10 off. This is even better. So be sure to use our link, use our promo code for that discount to apply. The Everywhere Jogger is awesome. You can get the Classic Line swim trunks. The stretch shorts are incredible. Everything that they have, it'll enhance your wardrobe so that you can get swagged up and swagged out. So Marshall, what I want to get to here is that Giants defensive line. Going into the year, I looked at it legitimately as a top 3 to 5 unit. Dexter Lawrence, the best nose tackle in the game. Abdul Carter, number 1 player on my board going into the draft. You have Brian Burns, elite pass rusher. Kayvon Thibodeau, he's played very well this year. Obviously, he was drafted with some pedigree out of Oregon. Why haven't they taken over games and played like that dominant unit, though?
Yeah, I think it can be misconstrued the way that they have had success and not had success this year. Look, we all want sacks. We all want strip sacks. I get that. That's not the only number I want Giants fans and other fans. Challenge yourself to think as a football fan. The New York Giants, Abdul Carter, he is number 11 of all edge rushers in the NFL with 22 pressures this year. Brian Burns, he's number 13 in pressures at the edge rusher spot with 21. And Kayvon Thibodeau, he's 21st in pressures at the edge rusher spot with 18. So 3 of the top 18 edge rushers when it comes to pressures are all with the New York Giants. They dominated against the Los Angeles Chargers. Backup tackles, I get it for LA. But sometimes the strength, like when you know you're a good football team or you have a good position group, your dominance can just make an opponent's weakness cause them to lose the game. That's what happened against the Chargers. Against the Saints, Spencer Rattler got the ball out extremely quick, had an average time to throw of 2.4 seconds. The Giants just haven't put it all together. They play off coverage. They play man coverage a lot, but a lot of off coverage. So the quarterbacks are able to work that quick game and get the ball out. I'm not worried about Abdul Carter, number 11 in all of football when it comes to edge rushers and pressures. That multi-sack game is coming. Dexter Lawrence hasn't had his best year. No one's questioning how good of a football player he is. So that's probably been the strongest unit for the Giants on defense, but the sacks necessarily haven't followed that. But when you look at the data, you watch the film, you just watch those guys work in one-on-one pass rush situations. They are winning their matchups very frequently. They just got to finish the job. They need a quarterback to hold on to the ball that much longer. We'll see if they can do that against an Eagles offensive line that's a little bit banged up, but still extremely talented.
Yeah, and for Giants fans out there who haven't been keeping close tabs on the Eagles, you think of the Eagles' offensive line last year, for instance, as the best unit in the NFL, if not the best, one of the best, right? Jordan Mailata this year has played awesome at left tackle. But Landon Dickerson has been bad. Brett Toth is going to take over for him. He's been a journeyman, and I'd say he's an average backup. Cam Jurgens hasn't really been that good this year. Tyler Steen's been up and down, but I'd say for the most part he's been pretty solid, but not as good as Mekhi Becton. And then Lane Johnson's been in and out of the lineup. And so this Eagles offensive line is looked at as an elite unit. They haven't played like that this year. And so that's going to be a huge matchup in the trenches. And obviously this Eagles offense has been hit and and miss. They haven't been able to put together a full 4 quarters. You mentioned that the Giants play a lot of man defense.
Yep.
The Eagles carve up man defenses, but they struggle against zone. Jalen Hurts against man this year, completion rate 76.7%, number 1 in the NFL. Passer rating against man 124.2, number 5 in the NFL. His catchable rate 88.4%, number 1. Some of the EPA and deep dive analytical numbers are also really good for Hurts against man. Against zone, they're bad. Completion rate down to 31. Passer rating 28th among starters. Catchable rate 26th. Is that something that you see the Giants maybe adjusting in this game, pressing the Eagles, playing some zone to try to see if they can beat it a little bit?
Look, the blueprint is out there. Look, it's only been 5 games. And I don't think it's fair to say Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback versus zone, but the numbers suggest he's better versus man than zone. And the New York Giants,
too.
Yeah, the Giants run cover 1 37% of the time. That's the highest rate in the National Football League, where they run cover 2 man 4% of the time, and they run cover 0 1% of the time. So 42% of the game, they are playing man coverage. We talked about the numbers. They have to find a way to put their team in position to have success. Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, he's been under fire from the Big Blue faithful out there. Last week, the numbers said Spencer Rattler was not good when he went up against disguised coverages. He actually called out the New York Giants defense, saying they don't do as much on the back end. Giants didn't switch it up, and they played vanilla coverage. They played off man, and Spencer Rattler worked the quick game. So the smart thing to do, and I'm not claiming I'm smarter than Shane Bowen. He's forgotten more about football than I would ever know. But if the numbers say Jalen Hurts is better against the man than zone, maybe the Giants should lean into the zone coverage a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about the Eagles' run game as well, and it kind of goes to my point. Why don't the Giants stack the box and maybe sometimes only blitz 3, maybe only blitz 4? I remember watching that game week 1 against the Cowboys. The Cowboys ran zone coverage every single play against Jalen Hurts in week 1. And a lot of it was 3-man rushes, stuffing the box, and then bailing into coverage, giving the look that you can't run the football. The Eagles, based on the numbers, you've watched a lot more than me. Saquon hasn't had a great year. A lot of reasons for that. But I always believe Saquon is going to make it a little bit personal against the Giants.
Yeah, and he's looked good. I don't think it's because he's worn down. Yeah. He's gotten washed overnight because of the heavy workload last year when he led the NFL in touches. He's looked really explosive. I mean, he had a 47-yard wheel route that Jalen Hurts drew up on the fly last week. His touchdowns, he's looked good on those touchdown runs. But his yards before contact last year was over 3. His yards before contact this year has been hovering around 1. It's an offensive line issue for the Eagles. One more thing I want to get to here, and then I'll give it to you if you want to ask me anything.
Yeah.
I watched the Giants this year, and I just don't know if they're a well-coached football team because they don't oftentimes look prepared, and they're really sloppy. And last week, you work off the momentum of beating the 3-0 Chargers. Jaxson Dart's professional debut. Then you go on the road. You're up 14-3 against the Saints. Then you lose the turnover battle 5-0, and you get outscored 23-0.
It hurts.
I know you've ranted about Brian Daboll. You've ranted about Joe Shane. Giants fans watch him. Marsh has some great rants. But is this just a poorly coached football team?
I think when you are 2-15 in your last 17 games, and you're 13-35-1 in your last 49 games, nobody is good enough. The GM in the front office hasn't been good enough. The head coach and the coaching staff hasn't been good enough. The players haven't been good enough. Nothing has been good enough for the Giants. Look, last week you're up 14-3. We're all hooting and hollering. We got a quarterback. We turned the corner. And then fumble. 5 straight turnovers for the Giants. I'm sure if you looked up the data of teams that lost the turnover battle 5-0, you probably lose 99% of games. I like Brian Daboll, the man. I would love to crush beers with Brian Daboll. I want Brian Daboll to be the right head coach for the Giants. I love his relationship with Jaxson Dart. I love how Jaxson Dart and Brian Daboll work together. And and we've talked about this, I don't want the Giants to go down the rabbit hole that the Chicago Bears have gone down with their recent quarterbacks. Draft a rookie quarterback, fire the head coach. They did that 3 times. Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields, and Caleb Williams. And I've said, I don't want the Giants to do that. But I'm almost starting to question now, is Brian Daboll best for Jaxson Dart. And instead of stunting his growth by firing Daboll and getting a new coach, will it actually help him grow if you get a better coach in here? I like Daboll. I do. I think he's a beautiful football coach. I think he knows a lot about football, more than I'll ever even think to imagine. But it's hard to ignore the data of 13, 35, and 1 in your last 49 games.
Yeah, that's brutal. And for a quarterback especially, structure and stability are so important.
He can't build a staff. That's one of my biggest concerns with him. He's on his second DC, his second offensive line coach, second special teams coach, second DP coach.
Second OC or third OC?
Well, first it was Kafka called the plays, then it was Daboll called the plays, and now we're on Kafka again. So that's the third time.
Eagles legend Mike Kafka.
I want Daboll to be the guy. I just don't know. And I worry, like the Giants have seen over the past couple of years, they'll fire him and then he'll go be a great OC somewhere else. So everything has not been good enough. So I want to transition to this. How did the Eagles lose this game, in your opinion?
The Eagles lose this game if they did what the Giants did against the Saints. When you turn the football over 4 or 5 times, I mean, you pretty much pin yourselves into a corner where you make it impossible for you to win a football game. And so if the Eagles just play sloppy, which has been very uncharacteristic under Nick Sirianni, they've really kept control of the ball and they forced a lot of turnovers. I think that's a way for the Giants to pull off an upset. I mean, last Thursday, we looked at this Niners team as 8.5-point underdogs against the Rams, playing with a bunch of backups and Mac Jones. They beat the Rams. So the beautiful thing about football is that anything can happen in any given game, but the Giants are going to have to play a near-perfect game, play flawlessly, win the turnover battle. Another thing that they could do realistically is destroy the game at the line of scrimmage. And if their defensive line owns Philadelphia's offensive line and the Eagles can't run it and they can't throw it, that's another avenue to victory for New York.
I find it funny. Obviously, Giants fans aren't happy, and I get it. Trust me, I'm not happy either. I sometimes dread coming to work when I got the best job in the world. And I see always Philly Twitter is full of drama as well. And I'm like,
you're famous with Philly Twitter.
Oh, they love me, and I love the tush push so much. I'm just like, I don't want to call them spoiled. Won the Super Bowl, been to the Super Bowl 2 times in 3 years. And we're talking about firing the coach. Is there a world where A.J. Brown is completely pissed off with his role? We saw Devontae Smith speak up a little bit. Saquon, I saw, spoke about that in the locker room, saying we've got competitive people that just want the ball. Is there any way, and I mean, last week, right, Jalen Hurts threw the ball more than he had any time this year, I believe, and Saquon, had 6 total touches. Brian Daboll, I don't know if he was trying to give the Eagles motivation. He's like, I see A.J. Brown open a lot.
Good mind games by him. Yeah.
Is there any way they just don't do what's needed to do on the offense, and they're trying to satisfy their players more so than doing what is right for the Eagles to win games, which I think is proven when they're a smash-mouth football team that opens up the passing game. And I don't know. I'm hoping for anything at this point.
There's a scenario where the offense continues to really struggle and the offense continues to flatline because they have a new offensive coordinator who's never called plays before, and he lacks play calling flow, play calling feel. And you watch a guy like Vic Fangio, right? And you know that he has feel. He's been doing this for decades. You watch a guy like Kevin Patullo, he lacks some of that feel. He lacks some sequencing. It's not to say that he can't find it, but if there's one thing that can really blow up this Eagles season, I think it is the new OC with the veteran offense, which this year returned 10 of 11 starters that won the Super Bowl. And his inexperience shows by the offense being good sometimes, bad sometimes, and never being able to become consistent. But the thing is, like under Sirianni, they've always kind of felt things out the first month.
Yeah.
And then that second month, they find an identity, they find their group. I just think they have too much talent for this to continue.
I don't know which offensive lineman I saw speaking in the locker room. He's like, I remember last year in October, y'all were telling us we got to fire the head coach.
Yeah.
And they went and won the Super Bowl. The matchup I'm worried about the most, obviously Saquon, he's going to do what he does, great player. How are the Giants, if the Eagles do lean more into the running game, how do they cover the Eagles? Balsa Debo has been fine, but Deonte Banks has been unplayable this year. Cordell Fly is a good CB3 or CB4, and Andrew Phillips in the slot has had some really good games, but he's also been picked on at times. And, of course, Dallas Goedert, he owns the Giants every single time they play. I don't think there is a way the Giants win this game, and one of the only ways I think they could do it is run the football well, dominate the D-line, and the Eagles kind of just self-implode. And I just don't even know if that's possible.
Well, shit. I mean, the Giants secondary is definitely down, but how do you kind of absorb that? How do you get past that? Maybe you play some zone. And the Eagles offense, they've struggled against zone all year. So good stuff. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. For Marshall, I am Chase. Subscribe to Giants Now. Subscribe to Eagles Now. Hop on board the Chat Sports movement, and we'll see you live for our watch parties tomorrow night.